The power of love and what it does to the people around you can be a one-way ticket to a fun and a dangerous adventure. And if there's one thing we love about adventures, they can go in all sorts of patterns and shapes in dungeons. Fortunately, there is a Dungeons and Dragons adventure that's relatively older, which is written around September/October of 1992. This adventure will be perfect for your low-level team if they're looking to brave the darkness for the first time, or if you're looking for a dungeon to fill out your, say, hex crawl. That adventure is A Wizard's Fate. So join me as we discuss the highs and lows of this 9-page adventure that you can easily plug into your own old school D&D game. Grab your torches, grab your caltrops, and don't forget to grab and buy some rope, because we are talking about A Wizard's Fate. A Wizard's Fate is written by Christopher Perkins and the artwork is by Bob Walters, and is featured in Dungeon Magazine issue number 37 of September/October of 1992. And yes, I did mention Christopher Perkins, the person who is or was the game designer and editor at Wizards of the Coast until retiring from there in 2025 and moving over to Darrington Press. Christopher states that the idea came from browsing a book on proverbs, and he had a vision of an imp eating his master's spellbook. Before Christopher was a big name designer and officially started working for Watson in 1997, it seems like he was writing adventures for, say, Dungeon Magazine. A Wizard's Fate is made for advanced Dungeons and Dragons scenario, and is designed for around 3 to 6 players who are around the levels of 1 through 3. The game suggests that the total level of the party should be around level 8. The module can be used as an introductory adventure, or be inserted into a longer campaign, which is what I did. Overall, the scenario deals with matters of the heart. It deals with an evil imp, who is virtually indestructible in comparison to a level 1 party. It deals with several puzzles and unique treasures if the adventurers can also solve them. Thus, for players who are interested in playing the scenario, send your game master over to learn more. Otherwise, you may be doomed to be stung by the terrible tale of an imp in this journey. And if you're a game master or someone who wants to be spoiled, then proceed. And also, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button while you're at it, because many of you aren't subscribed, and some of you may not have liked, so go ahead and do that right now. Okay, game masters and naughty viewers. This scenario comes out to 9 pages. Pages 22, 24, and 25 have either the maps of the dungeon or some random set of tables that you as a game master can roll on. Furthermore, each NPC is built for D&D 2nd edition, like I said earlier, but you can easily find that respective monster in your own old school Renaissance game of your choice. Each room key for the scenario is given a description box as well, meaning you'll have something to read off, which will greatly help your GMing journey. Lastly, it is in Dungeon Magazine, and given that all Dungeon magazines have been scanned, this adventure is entirely free and easily accessible via Internet Archive. I'll have a link to the game in the description box, as well as my PDF version of it if you want to skip all that. Overall, from a logistics standpoint, A Wizard's Fate won't break your bank and is super accessible if you're looking for a free adventure, one that will require minimal prep. I will say this though, given that it is an older adventure, it doesn't have the best quality in terms of just readability, so if you're looking for something that is more reader-friendly or user-friendly, then you might want to skip this product. While it might seem easy to use, what is actually going on in this adventure? The premise is that Elzid Nathlin was an evil wizard who in his younger days would experiment with a lot of alchemy and magical technology. As the book states, he was synonymous with corruption and evil, and his reputation led him to build his own wizard tower. This brought the reputation of the lower planes, given this is set in the Forgotten Realm setting, and thus it brought a lesser imp named Zotsbok. As the years passed, the evil wizard's nature softened out of boredom, and then eventually out of love for a young woman named Erilyn Windfellow. As the book states, Elzid was a man transformed by true love. He promised Erilyn that he would cast aside his evil ways to spend the rest of his life in her company. Zotsbok, nor the Nine Hells that watched the wizard were exactly thrilled their favorite evil wizard was getting all lovey-dovey and soft on them. Zotsbok, wanting to crush these feelings and get on the good side of Nine Hells, decided to do something drastic. One day, while the wizard was out, Zotsbuck tampers with Elza's components for the upcoming wedding, which was going to happen between Erlin and Elzin. This tampering caused a massive explosion, thus shattering the tower and surrounding area, as well as killing Elzin. Your players, assumedly, are assigned to investigate this destroyed tower and determine the cause of Elza's demise. This adventure is as classic then as it comes. Perkins even states that in the final paragraph of the Dungeon Master section, open quote, solve the mystery, save the maiden, snatch the treasure. What more could a low-level party desire? The plot is not confusing and convoluted. At the same time, it has enough going for it in terms of backstory that allows the Game Master to flesh out the world more or less. You can definitely expand the Nine Hells bit or the NPC Lauren Kennether as a potential ally. You could maybe have it that some of the adventurers knew Elzid in their past life. Maybe a magic user was a trainee of theirs at some point. The choice is ultimately yours to decide what the backstory looks like. What matters is that there isn't a lot of unnecessary backstory for you as the Game Master to know or for the players to know. With that in mind, what does this adventure do well? First off, Zotsbuck is really the fearsome enemy your players and their respective characters will have to overcome. I actually think Zotsbuck is the biggest highlight to this entire adventure. Zotsbuck has a powerful poison stinger that is a save versus poison or die instantly. Additionally, Zotsbuck can cast polymorph on himself and turn into a raven or a spider. Other spells include detect good, detect magic, and invisible at will, which can be used to his advantage to get the drop on players or to take items from them. He also has Elzid's ring of spell storing, which has darkness, forget, hypnotism, improve phantasmal force, and levitate. Zotsbuck is essentially playing guerrilla warfare with the heroes. While using the many tricks of the dungeons, such as the Hall of Mosaics or the Antechamber, or the many of the enemies they'll encounter, Zotsbuck uses magic, poison, and illusory, spells, and thinking skills to dupe and eventually kill the players in some capacity. His ultimate goal is to make sure that no one gets access to the treasure so that he can keep it for himself, and also to make sure that he doesn't lose Erlin, who he'll likely sell off to the Nine Hells. The other aspect is that the adventure is super streamlined. There isn't really any too complex puzzles that require any specific riddles. The most players will be doing is looking for keys around the dungeon to eventually enter Elzid's treasury. In order to get in there, they'll need to find 3 keys. This requires our players to search high and low for not only the keys, but the entire dungeon. This will let them encounter the several goblins that are killed by Zotsbuck. They'll encounter Erlin as well. They'll even see the secret rooms if they are lucky enough. Overall, between Zotsbuck and the many rooms this dungeon has, there's a lot to work with without it being overly complicated. The best way to use this scenario is to fit it into your tabletop RPG choice. This could be old school essentials, this could be Shadow Dark, this could be any variety of OSR game, or even a traditional game such as 5e. This scenario was intended for Forgotten Realms, but as I mentioned earlier, it can be easily shifted to be whatever you want. I'm actually running this as part of a greater campaign using the Silver Princess Orin adventure book. I easily slotted it in as a part of a random dungeon that's right outside of the major city. I believe it's Galuvia. I completely changed the start. Rather than have the sage approach them, the players were tangentially part of the explosion itself. They sent off a beggar to go check out the dungeon. And well, between the beggar and Zotsbuck's tomfoolery, they saw a massive explosion. This also put the time crunch on them, so they had to quickly get in and get out before the town's guards came and took them away for questioning. Regardless, I kept most of the actual dungeon relatively the same. The only thing I really changed was the fact that instead of goblins or other monstrous creatures, I changed them to largely human guards and or acolytes that Elzid might have had on hand. In terms of what my players did, what I gave them were options to deal with Zotsbuck that included, well, finding him despite him being invisible. This meant giving them access to items like, say, liquids or flour or any other powdered option so that they could detect someone despite not having the magical ability to do so or the power to do so. In terms of the treasure room, I also made sure to emphasize the importance of finding all of the keys, because if they don't find the keys, then they're kind of at a standstill. And if you're going to put them on a time crunch, given that time is valuable and is important in old school D&D games, it's important to make sure that they at the very least have the option and opportunity to find it multiple times. Therefore, my biggest advice is to choreograph the danger early on. Make it clear that the people that died outside the dungeon died from poison. If you have a cleric or any PC may have a background in poisons or herbology, or a player character who might really just be invested in learning more, give them the opportunity to learn that. Make it clear that it's a deadly poison that was likely done not by, say, food or anything, but rather it looks like someone stabbed them. Additionally, if the players are struggling to find the keys, you can use Erlen as the NPC who may have a thorough outline of the lair. This also makes Erlen more than just simply a damsel in need of help, and someone that can help the players materially. I also think it's nice to not just make random women characters in older D&D games just do nothing. On the other hand, if Zotsbach is pushed into a corner / an extreme, maybe he can take Erlen as a hostage. If the players manage to defeat Zotsbach or capture him, they may be able to get a new ally or enemy that they can extort, as well as a potential person to send them on their next quest. Zotsbach could allude to Eldred's former tower, which is mentioned in the book, specifically in the random discovery table. A Wizard's Tale is a great system generic scenario for low-level adventurers. It has a fun BBEG, some interesting puzzles, several NPCs that can lead to further quests and adventure hooks, and several treasures that can help the adventurers in their future journey. While it might not be graphically the most pretty, it certainly is comprehensive and has that old school feel of it being intended for advanced Dungeons and Dragons. It's also relatively deadly, so if you're looking for a game like that, then this is perfect for you. Plus, if you're a fan of 5e and or Christopher Perkins as a designer, then you get to play one of his earliest adventures in Dungeon Magazine for entirely free. So if you're looking for that, go check it down below in the description box. And if you're looking for other scenarios I have reviewed, check out this adventure by Snail Song called The Prisoners of the Pig Folk, where it's an awesome prison break with an awesome ending if your players manage to survive, especially if you like old school Renaissance and OSR games. Last but not least, a special shout out to my Patreon supporters, Harrison Parker and Logan, for your continued support. You too can support me over on Patreon over here, or you can check out my coffee for a one-time donation over there. And I'm your average everyday queer acolyte, arcane desires and lore, blurry disposition of y'all. Have an awesome day. Ciao!